Hello there everyone and welcome back. It is time to play some ranked mode, and I know for a fact that I managed to get some matches in for everyone now, cause I'm doing this preview recording just after I did those actual matches, so I can tell you without a doubt that there are going to be some ranked matches. I finally got them, a handful anyway, and we'll see if I can get more for this upcoming week. That's the hope anyway, but I just want to talk to you about my setup, what I'm going to be fielding for these matches, and it is still a work in progress, as quite frankly there's a lot of these upgrades I could tweak out, especially the ones I have on my frigates, quite frankly, because I got a few upgrades on them as well. But nonetheless, if you already looked at my composition of my cruisers and battle cruisers, you already have a rough idea what I'm going for. It's practically unchanged from what I had with my persistent mode games. The only difference, of course, is I had to cut back on a couple of Evil Sun tractor cans. As much as I love those tractor cans, I do have to put a fine limit on how many of them I can have. So, how many do we have exactly? We have 5 to be exact. And the other 2 light cruisers I have chosen to actually field a second Novacan, a second torpedo carrier cruiser, in the case I encounter like maybe Eldar or anything that's going to rely on lots of fighters. I'm thinking more of Eldar and possibly for Space Marines after my encounter with them in the previous episode. So, I am hoping this helps a bit, but the extra turrets is definitely questionable, and when I was setting up this fleet, I completely forgot I didn't put a Weird Boy tower on these 2 bashes, so there is still room for improvement. I probably will just swap this out after this recording here, but nonetheless, everything's as you've seen it. The only difference is for these bigger ships is that the crew composition is going to be Dakamaster boys and the Grots even. All of these cruisers, all the way down, with the exception of my bashes, have this setup, and it's a little bit questionable if I want to switch this out a bit, because my battle cruisers and battleships don't really benefit so much from the Grots, to be honest, because the reason I upgrade these to begin with is so they can reduce the cooldown of my tractor cans. I don't think they actually help with my boosters my big rep button, kind of like how they reduce the rate bone shift for Eldar, so I'm probably going to switch those out as well. There's a lot of little tweaks I can do to this fleet, especially with 8,000 renown to work with, so this is what I'm fielding as of my current fleet. The only exception, as I mentioned, is with my 2 bashes here with the Weird Boy tower, I decided to only put a single point into the Weird Boys, and I did forget to mention why I didn't invest so much in the Weird Boys for my bigger ships. Well, it's easy. It's the damn micro warp jump. I cannot warp out or escape if I'm going to be relying on this thing to actually get into fights, into engagements, so I can't go half and half. I have to commit fully with this aggression or just change my fleet composition altogether. And if I'm going to go with mega cans, I have to commit. And with the micro warp jump, it's going to be almost impossible, I would argue, to warp out safely. I would argue anyway, so that is the reason I cut out the Weird Boys. But with the bashes, since there's going to be so much more prevalent and so much more important potentially, they do have the Weird Boy upgrades, and of course the Fly Boys. But this is where things get a little bit different. My Onslaught has the range attack for its guns, but both my Savage and Onslaught have additional turrets, and this is a bit questionable, but with the games I have been playing so far in my persistent mode, I have been able to effectively field at least 4 of these for each of my matches, because I tend to commit to like no more than 5 cruisers, so with 4 of these, that does technically make up for the upgrade cost, at least. It's just a question of if this is as effective as I'm thinking it will be. That is something I'm going to have to think on and play test a little bit. But nonetheless, it should help some with torpedoes and fighters and bombers, especially when they're in the front line. But that is my fleet in a nutshell there. I only got 3 skills for my Death Dealer, because quite frankly I couldn't think of much to put for the 4th, aside from maybe the capacitor recharge. But with the... Ooh, that's the wrong upgrade, I just realized. That was supposed to be a turbo booster, so with the turbo booster, of course, after we fix that error, we can... giving it extra boost is probably a bad idea, which is kind of why Well, let's see, I also gave it the additional rotation speed, which will make it useful, especially for potential torpedo, like, waves that they're going to have to dodge. Even though I technically haven't dealt with that too terribly much, I did give it the additional rotation speed, so it can hopefully keep its prow facing my opponent, which is where Orkz want them, especially Orkz with mega cannons. But I talked on long enough. Let's get you to your matches that you're so waiting for. Alright folks, our first match is underway and we are fighting against Imperial Navy. And you already know my feeling there with Imperial Navy. I should have an easy enough time getting in close, but with my experience as Imperial Navy fighting Orkz, if this opponent is playing properly and playing seriously, he's going to try and weather me down and soften me up before I can get into close combat range, because there's very little he can do to avoid me. He can delay it, mind you, which is kind of how I've been playing it. I have the championship series to prove it and to demonstrate it in action, but not with that said, it's just a matter of how much I can avoid, what kind of fleet he's even fielding, quite frankly. There isn't very many options. It's either the carrier fleet, I guess, from Echelons with the Marses and the Dictators. There's the straight up, like, what is it, armor-piercing ammunition type of fleet, which is all the macro batteries you can muster, and of course there's the Nova cannons, which might do a good amount of damage on me there, especially with the possibility my frigates dying relatively quickly, because unlike my persistent mode games, these savages don't quite have the shield recharge, let alone the extra shield health to kind of mitigate that. And I need to point out, this is something a little bit different I'm going to try and do, grouping up my fleets to try and hopefully minimize my control group issues and rotating the camera. I'm going to deploy the savages on the side there and then group them up separately. That is what I'm going to do to try and hopefully make it a little more quicker to deploy all these ships, because after all, I'm going to be consistently fielding like 10, 11 ships, more often than not, especially when it's a 700 point cruiser class, so this seems to help a little bit. It seems to help a little bit. It saves me having to rotate my camera at least, which for me trying to play seriously is going to be required to, because it's entirely possible it could throw me off just a slight bit. And we're looking at his fleet, 4 ships with one in the middle there. I do not pay too much attention to his movement, but the middle ship is a Widowmaker. The middle ship is a Widowmaker, so he's just gonna do what Widowmakers normally do. He's gonna poke it up forward, try and reveal me for whatever he has in mind. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna try and maneuver around this structure, try and keep my pace going consistent. Hell, there are times, especially when I was playing Imperial Navy or anything that doesn't really have that long range punishment, when I reveal myself, I'm kind of contemplating boosting to basically cut down the time to get to him. Although, with my need to reload, and I forgot to actually reload in this matchup, I'm realizing, it probably is not a good idea. And surprise, surprise, there's his fleet composition, folks. You've seen it firsthand. And so far, his autocast Nova cannons did not seem to do crap, quite frankly. All my savages did take a beating. Their shields could theoretically recharge in time for next Nova cannons, but he's casting reload. He's using the reload to speed up his Nova cannon shots, so normally the timing would be kind of perfect to regenerate and protect those savages from the next salvo. It's not going to happen here, but this is where I decide to boost on in. I'm willingly going to take the next supercharged void shield, as my micro-warp jump's about a minute away, and so far I've been really good about that def deal and not having its boosters get destroyed or damaged. But this is what I'm talking about here. Shields on one savage actually managed to go up, but that was because it never got hit by a Nova cannons. But he destroys all 3 savages. A little bit unfortunate. One still remains, but we're within prime range of the sap cannons just about. All that matters now is getting this one beacon, and I'm realizing halfway through this charge that I only have 1 auger probe, so I gotta make sure this counts. I gotta make sure it counts, and luckily for me, I got tractor cannons to help with this. I don't know why the hell I pushed that thing forward. I think I was trying to move the cruiser and accidentally moved it. I'm pretty certain that wasn't intentional. Nonetheless, tractor cannons are doing this thing. We got Auger Disruptor to keep it from running away, because again, we've seen the reload potentially be an effect for his cruiser. So he does have Micro Warp Jump, so I'm going to keep him from running away. Needless to say, it'll be an interesting little test to see how players react when their poor Micro Warp Jump is no longer functioning, huh? It makes for a potentially easy target for me because these ships go the same speed as me and I am closing in aggressively with these big red buttons. Big red buttons with the evil suns, no less, so I get even bigger red button as a bonus. Nonetheless, I do my Micro Warp Jump, try and get in a better position, basically try and block off and also to prevent potential insubordinations, because that's going to happen pretty soon too with the Warp Jump coming up, but we got a nice surround and we stopped that one Dominator head on. Stop it head on, it's not going anywhere. We just need one more good shot as we're now in the thick of it. I don't quite have the brace for impact, unfortunately, for this one ship, so I'm doomed to lose one cruiser relatively quickly. So we're basically going to be pretty close to a one-on-one trade there if I can destroy his Dominator quickly enough. And quite frankly, the Dominator is probably the bigger threat anyway if it has armor-piercing rounds. I did check its upgrades quickly or select it. I'm selecting his ships to prioritize the engines even, so I know he's got them fully upgraded and he doesn't even have favors on any of them, so I did not pay attention to his armor-piercing rounds, but it's needless to say this is a bit of a mess. I'm trying as much as I can to block his pathway, continue to jam his ships and just destroy as many as I can. Ideally focus fire if possible, but that's going to be very difficult to do if I'm going to try for ramming, because eventually I'm either going to miss him on the ramming attempt or I'm going to push him to my side at some point. And thank you kind of for the explosion, damn it. It was not appreciated, but it had a big impact. Two of his cruisers are gone. Two of of mine are about to go, because apparently I was talking about Evil 1-1 trade. My first terror, what is it? Is it a terror? Yeah, it's a terror there. Did not even get destroyed yet. So I'm actually doing pretty good. Heavily damaged assaults I can live with, but if I can avoid destruction, it'd be even better. It'd be even better, but of course, I just realized doing this commentary, he did fire a second Nova Can to destroy it. Don't know if that was an autocast or not, but I am getting some casualties, but at the end of the day, this is a big win for me. If he's going to be fielding 5 Nova Can fleets there, I am just about to destroy like 3 of them. I already destroyed 3 of them, and I'm really damn close to destroying the 4th one. So his strategy there is all but foiled at this point. As I try and rally my ships all together, I get in nice and close. I'm going to lock on with the Death Deal in a moment, and it's just a matter of making sure I get shots that stick. Ooh, and do they ever stick? Look at all those fires from the boarding attempts I just did, with more being done from the Mega Cans that are about to ensue. Hell, like I said, I lock on to get the guaranteed critical hits for any Mega Cans that actually do get through the armor. Ooh, and it's going to hurt. His engines are gone. He's burning to death. This match is over. This first match, anyway. And needless to say, as scary as the Nova Can salvo was, it was damn effective nonetheless when I did get close. Tractor cans are kind of a necessity a little bit. Unless I want to go with the, the capacitor recharge. That boosts back up my big red button. That could be useful too, but Micro Warp Jump arguably is better. At least more impactful anyway. It's working damn good here, because like I said before, it also prevents me from having to worry about insubordination. So, while I'm not really comfortable forfeiting my ability to run away safely, it is damn good at what it does, without a doubt. But that's the cruiser clash out of the way. That I believe was my choice of mission there as defender, so we get to see what he picks, and I don't even get a chance to see. He just immediately goes for a second cruiser clash here. So, we're going to bring bigger guns, especially with 2 of my cruisers gone at least, so I'm limited to 3 tractor cans this time around. Which is not bad at all. Not terrible, because we know we destroyed his 2 battle cruisers. Well, I'm honestly not sure if he had 2 Marses or not. I just know he had 4 Nova Cans, so he had at least 2 Dominators and at least 1 Mars to field all those. I don't know if he got a 3rd Dominator or a 2nd Mars for that fleet. That's probably something I wasn't paying all that much attention to, but nonetheless, we're going with bigger guns this time. More potent guns. And it's going to be brutal. I'm going to look forward to this. It's just a matter, again, of getting close and minimizing the damage, because this time around, while I'm setting up my groupings, I lost my train of thought, damn it. I was watching to see if I actually remember to group them. No, this was the match where I forgot to group my savages, so you're going to see a little bit of mess while I'm deploying there, as I undeploy my savages so I can actually group them up properly. But this is the one where he's actually going to be going torpedo spam on me this time for Retribution and 4 Dauntlesses. So this is where my ability to read my opponent and hopefully minimize the damage to keep myself in good standing health is going to be pretty damn important. Like I was talking about earlier about the Imperial Navy matchup. But there's also something interesting that I'm experimenting with here. But one of my Terrors and a Basha is turned inwards a little bit, and the reason for that, as silly as it may sound, is I'm going to be immediately using my tractor cannons to push the Death Dealer forward some. It may not be much, but it helps a little bit to negate the slower speed that the Death Dealer has, so it can keep up pace with the rest of my fleet, as you're going to observe. It may not really matter considering I'm holding position on my Terran Basha, mind you, but that's the thought process anyway, to try and get it further ahead so it doesn't limp behind some, because it's my biggest ship, it's got my biggest weapons, most health. It kind of needs to get in the front line if at all possible, but the torpedoes have begun, and like I said before, I'm going to be trying my best to minimize these torpedoes. This time though, he's doing a sort of wide arc, so I'm probably going to get hit by a few of them. But here on out, he's going to try and focus fire those torpedoes. Going to get really narrow arc on them to try and pin down one of my ships and do a substantial amount of damage to him. And while I did a good job dodging those torpedoes there, I took maybe a few hits on the one tear there. And the second salvo comes on in. This time they're going to be in a much tighter arc, but thankfully I'm already turning, which is the one thing I have going for me here. Because every time he fires his torpedoes, he's actually moving sideways there. So this is a little subtle thing I'm utilizing as I'm approaching this and dodging these torpedoes, is I'm watching when he stops moving his ships, because that signifies when he's turning towards me. This is going to hurt, I'm not going to lie, because I'm turning my ship poorly there and it takes a full broadside of like 4 or 5 torpedoes. I want to keep its prow facing it, but this is what I'm talking about here. I'm watching a little bit for his movement, and you're going to see right here, he stopped moving sideways, and I'm already turning. My ships are already turning, I'm watching for a torpedo arc, and this is relatively an easy dodge. The only exception would be the Retribution, which kind of gives away its slower turn radius. I don't know if that's the 5-degree turn radius or if he upgraded or not, but you could clearly see with the sudden was how sudden he had to make those torpedo shots. He didn't wait until the Retribution was able to make the hits, but we're dodging these shots relatively well, and I do need to pay attention to how those savages are doing with their extra point defense, because that is going to be useful there. If nothing else, they're going to take the stray torpedoes might get in my way, and this is where I'm already juking them. You see it again, I'm already turning as those torpedoes are coming on out. It's working really damn well, I gotta say, although this one Savage is in a bit of an awkward spot. It might take a couple of hits as the Death Dealer is desperately turning, and there's the extra 5-degree turn working for you there a little bit. I think I may have still took 1 torpedo on the Death Dealer, but I think it's safe to say as I boost on in, commit to my engagement, we are looking in really good shape. I want to say, it's just taking these next few macro cannon shots as I get myself set up for the big engagement to come. My composition, my fleet setup isn't actually, well, my fleet formation rather, is not really all lined up very well, so I am throwing 3 of my ships in very aggressively, but at the same time, it does get his attention as I micro warp jump to dodge the torpedoes and, of course, with the added use of being able to provide vision for me for tractor cannons. But mainly I did use the micro warp jump there to dodge those torpedoes. And sadly, Death Deal is not going to be able to do its jump just yet because the savages are kind of in the way right now. Ooh, and there's a nice panic. Everything, brace for impact immediately. Well, a few of them look like they already did brace for impact if I'm looking at the timer properly, but we're in the thick of it now. Well, I'm going to be trying to prioritize these dauntlesses here, try and get what damage I can. As much as I would love to focus on the retribution, it's kind of already being shielded by a dauntless or two, and most of my fleet isn't even there, so I'm going to try and hopefully kill a dauntless by the time my Death Dealer gets in range. One thing I did not know is that apparently the mines do double damage to my frigates, so I lost the Savage for nothing there, unfortunately. A minor fact, but it is something I need to learn. As I said, we're in the thick of it. Both these cruisers are in good shape still. They took a lot of damage, mind you, but they're still in fighting condition. They got repairs going on, and they still have mega cannons and tractor cannons. So, this is going to be fun. Everything has arrived. My boost is a little bit of a mess because my Death Deal is going to ram my own savages in a moment, but we're almost in prime mega cannon range. Just got to give it a few more moments as my warp jump is now getting ready. Death Dealer is in the fight and is unloading everything. The poor dauntlesses are getting massacred. Mind you, 1 damage at a time for each, like, gun turret mount, but we turn our attention now to the retribution. Everything else is already crippled. I do, unfortunately, lose a Basha to that torpedo salvo, but it gets one last tractor cannon for the additional ram damage. And remember, folks, Orkz are really good at boarding. Maybe arguably not as good as Space Marines, but every single one of my cruisers get an additional boarding action as part of their Orkish traits. So we just unloaded a bunch of boarding parties on them, got a lot of critical hits, and we're also jamming his precious micro warp jump. Although, sadly, my Death Deal was a little bit slow to do that there, but you see the results of those jammers in action. He could not get that retribution out until it was too late. And also, the fact, what was my point there? I can't remember what my point was with the Augur Disruptor. I think it's in the second match, actually, that I'll make this point. But, nonetheless, it's a nice massacre. Denying a micro warp jump feels some good, especially when their strategy depends upon that mobility, that disengagement as it were. It's surprisingly effective, needless to say, especially when I have 3-4 ships that can actually jam consistently. Because with 2-minute cooldown, keep in mind I do have Garrots to reduce the Augur Disruptor even further, is really likely I can permanently jam his sensors and keep him from warping out. If I can chain it perfectly. 25 seconds, remember. 25 seconds where the sensors are jammed for each Augur Disruptor. So, that is a vicious combo if I execute it right. But onward to the next match. Alright, we're on match number 2 here. We are fighting Chaos this time around, and this is going to be a tenuous one for me because I never fought Chaos in my persistent mode game, so I have no idea what to expect here aside for what I know. Lots of lances, lots of range, and good mobility, and hell, most of his Chaos ships, if not all of them, have the Emission Dissipator, more than likely, so revealing him is going to be tricky. But what I do for this setup, which is a little bit different than what you would probably expect, I'm going with the Space Station Assault, and I am the attacker. And if you watch my Battlefleet Gothic Championship videos, you know where my thought process is. Fighting a Space Station Assault against Orkz is probably a futile mistake, or big mistake, especially if their fleet is consistent of mega cannons. Because I fought so many on Space Station Assault that even when matches were going my way, they were still so damn close. I feel like this is actually in favor of the Orkz if they're the attacker, quite frankly. It depends on the composition, mind you, to be fair. But in the case with my fleet, with the mega cannons, the saps, and micro warp jump to getting close, I feel like this is the right choice for me. As I do try and figure out what kind of composition I want, because quite frankly, I'm contemplating not having tractor cans for this match because it's not going to be as important. I'm going to be fixated on a stationary target, so tractor cans mean little for me here, so I'm trying to think of maybe saving them for the Cruiser Clash, or at least the next match, but unfortunately, the points don't really line up very well with a hammer. So, I'm forced to go with 4 tractor cans anyway, unfortunately. I would have liked to bring the hammers in there, but they don't actually offer additional firepower though, as comparison to the tears. They don't even offer extra health, so their uses are probably a little more valuable with their beacons, quite frankly, for what I'm expecting is a Cruiser Clash or something for the next round. So if I can win this match, I need to be in fighting form for the next one, because I have no idea what to honestly expect here. I could lose a lot of ships here despite how aggressive I am and how successful the attack is, or it could go incredibly well and I lose nothing. I have no idea what to expect here because we're treading on new ground. This is new ground, this is exciting times, but it's also tenuous and scary times as I'm trying to figure out my damn deployment with this one Basha hugging the structure there. So I ultimately redeploy a little bit, especially since I made the mistake with my initial deployment of not giving my frigate space to deploy in front of the, deploy in front of my cruisers. So the strategy is going to be very similar to what I did before. I'm going to have the savages in front, potentially soak a lot of the fire, if not just deal with any bombers I may have to contend with. And if they can take some lance fire, considering their armor is no different than any other ship with lances, we are looking good. It's just hull breaches and fires that could be problematic with the lances if they ever were to get a critical hit. Nonetheless, this is our composition, this is our strategy, we already know what it is. We're going to go straight on through, really damn recklessly. I did manage to remember my reload this time around, although the timing may not work very well considering he's already deployed in the middle of the map. He's already in the middle of the map there, so I have less time to get that back up, but at least I have that available for the engagement. Although, again, it really comes down to what does the micro warp jump serve here. I do second guess that a little bit, but it can be useful for repositioning wounded ships that he's trying to focus down, considering I'm forfeiting my rear and my sides to the Chaos player, and if he's got enough macro batteries, that is going to hurt. Because not all, the Chaos ship still has a notable amount of macro batteries, you just don't think about them as much, because obviously, when you think of Chaos, it's either the bombers or the lances mainly. And this is where the double damage on the frigate is annoying, because I did fly another Savage into a mine, thinking it only took 100 points of damage, quite frankly. I was okay with it taking some damage, I just didn't want to die immediately, as I, unfortunately, rammed my own ship too. A little bit unintentional, but apparently we're already faced off with a weird type of setup here. He's fielding 5 frigates, 5 idolators, I think. So I'm not quite sure what his getup is. I think he may already be forfeiting this match, potentially. Because there's, what, 5 idolators? He's got a battleship and he's even got a regular cruiser here. So, it's hard to say what his strategy is ultimately, but we're going in close. This fleet looks really damn tempting, I'm not gonna lie. And to be honest, I actually do turn my attention to this devastation. It's questionable if I should have gone after a Desolator instead, but with his position and over on the side there, probably is not worth it, especially with his extra health. But we quite frankly get ourselves a drive-by devastation instead. This thing's gonna die immediately, especially with Omega cannons and lots of boost in ramming attempts. And oh god, just look at the 90-degree turn that Terror just did. I don't know how it's able to do that on a destroying ship, but if I can learn that, imagine how ridiculously I could turn those ships if that was possible. Although, as it stands now, it's probably a fluke, as I ram another Savage. You could tell I care about my fleet so much, especially the frigates. But nonetheless, we are in a good position here. Micro warp jump's coming up, as you're going to see. I'm repositioning my wounded ships so that way they hopefully are not as easy to damage, so they can hopefully avoid getting shot down and crippled. Because this station's already dying super quick. It's already dying insanely fast, and there is one little thing I come up with at the last second. I am turning my attention to the Desolator. I am hoping to focus on this thing immediately, bring its shields down as I pull it into the station. And remember, if you remember what I said about death traps? Remember what I said about this base station assault being a nightmare to fight on? My theory is I just destroyed the Desolator. It's hard to really say right now because it also flies out of screen, but you're going to see a void explosion in a moment, which I'm pretty certain was from the Desolator. It's hard to really say how the end of game results works, especially with random and sudden bursts of damage, because I had experiences where my ships got destroyed like 10-15 seconds when I saw the screen, and then cases where my ships get heavily damaged even though I saw them explode. Just like this one tear here is the only actual damage result I actually got from that. Everything else is in fighting form, so I am wondering, did I destroy the Desolator, or did it bug out and not register that? I honestly have no idea. So we're going to this match with a little bit of mystery on our hands. And I'm going to spoil it for you now. I have no idea if it was destroyed or not for this match, or damaged, but he does not feel the Desolator for this one. As we go into his choice of map, his choice of missions, he does not feel the Desolator. In fact, he's going to do something interesting, something I was not expecting. He is going to go with a data recovery, and I'm going to be the defender in a moment. So I'm thinking his strategy is to be able to have vision on me constantly, so that way he can chip me down with his lances, perhaps. If I had to guess, but I have such cheap ships and really didn't lose anything at all in the last round besides a heavily damaged cruiser, that I do something a little bit unorthodox here, that against my own judgment that I would normally field for these type of matches. I'm going with 6 cruisers. It's pretty self-explanatory when you consider it's a data recovery. I have so much more tractor cannons, so much more auger disruptors, and so many more lightning strikes if his shields are down. And also, I was talking about before, the other benefit of the auger disruptor, he cannot lightning strike when he's being jammed. This is something I didn't realize until after this match. In a data recovery, the only way he's going to be able to steal the data from me, unless he gets really lucky, is he has to get point blank range and board me manually. And if I have to say anything at all, you know how much I welcome such a close range maneuver. How much I appreciate him doing such a daring ploy. Because his ships are going to die immediately. It probably won't even have time to warp out if he were to dare such a thing. It is tempting, needless to say, and with my Admiral ship in the back, my strategy is just to shield its damage initially. I'm just going to keep it behind everything else, rotate out my ships. I'm not even planning on engaging them. I'm planning on making them come to me in this exchange. So, I have a lot of health to throw around, especially with 6 cruisers. I am planning on winning this 2-0. I'm not even thinking about a third match, which is kind of important to do, considering I am throwing a lot of ships in this matchup. A lot of cruisers anyway. And if he were to somehow destroy his fleet because he's decide to wait, he have the beacon and not warp out, or was it he has the data but chooses not to warp out, then he has the window to maybe kill me. But once I realize this structure beside us here and I'm looking around for additional structures, I am just going to continue with the strategy of standing my ground. But I got a nice little structure here to protect me from lance fire. I don't even need my cruisers at this point to shield for me, which makes this strategy all that more better. Maybe I got a little bit lucky, hard to say, but I'm taking advantage of my good fortune regardless. So we are looking at his deployment there. He's got 7 ships, all of which are over to my right, so I don't have to worry about a flanking maneuver. I don't have to worry about anything sneaky. I just gotta reposition my cruisers to be able to greet him if he decides to push on forward. So, we're gonna do just that. We're gonna do just that, and otherwise, we just wait for him to make his move. I have like auger disruptors on like 4 ships here, and it's quite notable. That's like 100 seconds, so it's a little bit short of 100, and yeah, a little bit short of the 2-minute cooldown on the auger disruptor if I were to chain it perfectly. I don't know if it's quite enough though with the improved grots though to be able to chain that or not, but still it's really damn close and it's really damn brutal regardless. So I'm going to take full advantage of that because micro warp jump's not really going to be a factor in this matchup because it's still a minute and a half away. So he cannot jump behind me and I cannot jump into him. So hell, speaking of going into him, I am prepping to forfeit my position and just go right at him, quite frankly. This may be a bit of a mistake, in all honesty, because if he were to really commit to stealing the data, he probably could get past me. Even with all my tractor cannons, he could get past me since I don't have an easy way to turn around with the lack of said micro warp jump. Especially when I'm committing to boosting on in like I am. So, there's a lot I question about this, but nonetheless it's going to be a good time as this Hellbringer is in prime position to get eradicated. It's even going to get rammed in a moment and it's going to hurt. As the last man brace for impact comes on out and half its health's already gone. There's the health difference and the 50 armor taking effect. Remember your brace for impacts, folks. It is damn important if you're expecting to get rammed at all. It is brutal, because right now that thing's just dying to a bunch of 1-point guns, so it's gonna die eventually. It has already ramming the Acheron up top, I believe. He has an Acheron and a Stig, so he's got a bit of an odd fleet, needless to say. There's not much consistency there, so it's hard to really judge what his strategy is. But nonetheless, this thing is getting massacred, so I think he may have given up on me, because he is trying to commit to fighting. It could possibly be a newer player due to the sale. But nonetheless, I'm having a good time with this. It's unfortunately not a real match against Chaos, mainly because of the mission types themselves. Because we did not fight a cruiser clash where Chaos would probably be favored fighting me here, with all his extra time to get in the proper position. All the freedom of movement, and of course not being put on the clock, because I have an objective or he has a space station that he's kind of stuck defending. A little unfortunate, because I do need that practice if I want to learn the nuances of Chaos, to know the kind of damage output against my fleet and how much I can get away with. But in the end, I did play the objective, as boring as it may sound, and we won a nice flawless victory. I will get my due though. If I can get more ranked matches in, I'm eventually going to have a serious fight against Chaos, and it's going to be difficult. I feel like Eldar I have potential beating, maybe not for a best of 3 unless I can destroy a good chunk of his ships there in the first battle. But with Space Marines and Chaos being the main ones I have to really think and focus on, I would have liked a real match with Chaos. And by that, again, I'm referring to like Cruiser Clash, anything that doesn't involve me abusing the mission type a little bit. But I'm hoping to bring a couple more ranked mode matches, because if I were to do more persistent mode games, I am aiming to switch up my fleet or do something a little bit different with them.